go back and forth. I know we talked a little bit last week about the theme song, Dustin. Welcome, everyone, to Because Cannabis here on Wayward Media. B.C. Wehman, Dustin Kava, every Friday. You know the drill. We take talking about the new theme song as we're still finding our ways. Every great show that's just getting started has but humble beginnings, Dustin, but humble beginnings as we do here on Because Cannabis. But I feel like we're trying to find that perfect song that encapsulates. That's not even the right way to say that. Encapsulates. Oh, I'm not even going to talk today. Rough morning. Wow. That gets the vibe of the show that we're trying to do. And we keep going round and round. But sometimes when that rock and roll kind of jam starts, and I know it seems almost not in line with a cannabis themed show, but when it starts, man, it gets the juices a grooving, Dustin.
For some, I don't even know what it is this morning. It's early. It's early for a man who never sleeps. And so I'm going to have fun this morning. I feel like I even forgot my coffee next to me. I got nothing. We're going almost blind this morning.
Oh, no coffee. I feel like that's a mandate. I have coffee. I have water. Like, that's show prep, right? Get the throat all nice and ready to go. But still, during the show, we're a casual conversation that we're talking about cannabis. I should have said those 3 C's. Cannabis, casual conversation. So, got to get the juices. Either way, you're going all natural, right? The natural high, just fueled by the good stuff. How's your week been, Dustin? How are we going? Are we ready to chit-chat and talk about the world of cannabis today?
I am. I think that, every week brings along its own set of journey. And this week was no different. But I kind of love that the show ends the week for me. It encapsulates the end of just all the craziness. It kind of is the day of, the reflection. And I love the show for that,
It is a great end to the week. That is for sure. It may not be a great end of the year, Dustin. We got our title up today, Headlines and Headaches. We're going to talk some more current news. We have a slate of amazing guests lined up coming up in the next few weeks. So really excited for that. Be sure to subscribe. You subscribe, you're going to get those notifications when we schedule the shows. They go live some point on Friday. You want to subscribe to the Wayward Media YouTube channel to make sure that you don't miss what we have coming up. Great shows. So we got our last kind of news and notes, headlines and headaches, because we got some frustrating headlines to talk about today, Dustin. So got a little catch-up show. Wayward Media. We got Because Cannabis on there. We got Anthony Trav streaming now. Dustin got his streaming up. I don't know if Anthony is listening to our show, though he should. I'm sure he is subscribed to Wayward Media. I'd like to talk to you a second, just to kind of promote his show. He usually streams 2 or 3 nights a week. World of Warcraft, if that is your jam. It is also Anthony Travs, one of our buddies here at Wayward Media. Great content, pretty good World of Warcraft player. Anthony's a good-looking guy, Dustin, and I feel confident saying that. But I do got to question the sunglasses. All right, so we got to talk about this, right? We all have a style. I wear polos every single show, Dustin, some kind of polo. Shout out Cleveland School of Cannabis, brand new swag I'm rocking today. You tend to have your beanie, you tend to have, your homeless shelter vibe going on, the black hoodie, the beanie, the big beard. We have our vibe, our jam, and everyone's got their unique style. Anthony Trav, in his streaming, now has adopted sunglasses for an indoor looking at the computer thing. You've known Anthony Trav longer than I, and I'm really happy to get to know him. He has been a big part of getting Wayward Media up and off the ground and getting Because Cannabis fueled. He creates a lot of the visual imagery for some of this. So, the sunglasses, though, are you feeling it? That's all. Are you really feeling it?
I love anything that evolves and moves. And you know what? His show is actually, you can see every single show, something's changing about it. It's evolving, whether it's the way he's bringing you into what he's doing, or whether it's, he's finally getting some of the overlays he wanted for the stream, and he's finally this backdrop, he's finally showcasing the things he loves most, behind him while he's gaming. And the glasses it's like everything else is a window into his world. And then he throws on the glasses and is like, I'm just going to hide from you all.
Not the eyes.
Yeah, not the eyes. Everything else is yours.
Can't look into his soul, but it's good, man. I'm excited. I actually think we have some few new shows coming up as well. So I think Wayward Media as a whole evolving, right? We're evolving. The show's evolving here. Wayward Media is evolving. Got some great content coming up. But definitely, if you haven't checked out Anthony Trav's game stream, we would appreciate that as well. Give the channel a subscribe on the YouTube. Make sure we are available as audio. Our shows usually hit about 2 weeks after the Friday shows anywhere that podcasts are available audio-wise, your Spotify, your iTunes, all of those good jams. Head over to those, give those a follow as well. Leave us a rating, type a few words, tell us how you love us, helps us out. I know that you're not, it's always weird to kind of beg for it, but the reality is it helps.
Yeah.
So if you like the show, we would like your help in helping us spread the word. Because sometimes, Dustin, there's my segue. I was trying to find a segue earlier, but I got distracted by thinking about Anthony's sunglasses. So my segue earlier about this was gone. Anyway, there's frustrating news here in the state of Ohio, Dustin. That's how I can't even speak about it because I'm getting frustrated about the concept. So Ohio, 4 years ago, September 8th of 2016, House Bill 523 went into effect. Governor Kasich signed it into law. It became our medical marijuana program run by the Ohio MMCP, the Medical Marijuana Control Program. It has had its ups and downs. I mean, it's going, so I guess that's an up. It's got a lot of downs. I know we've expressed frustration. There are several people that get frustrated with it. It has not been financially as successful as some. I just looked at, I think it was New Mexico or somewhere, did like 380 in their first year in medical, and Ohio was well below that. We've only done about 390 as a program so far in the 2 years. We started sales January 16th. Of 2019. So in those couple of years, we haven't even done that much, right? That one of these states did in their first year. So they launched it up, and everyone keeps waiting for what we hope happens in a lot of states that go medicinal, adult use. So Ohio's been flirting around with this ballot initiative, trying to get adult use and home grow, right? Something that happens in a lot of medicinal states back on the ballot. So I know we've talked a little bit about it. So before I bring up the current headline, like the breaking news on this,
I seriously know nothing about this. I am like, you have me shaking of like, do we really have to start the morning off with a real banger right now?
It's the headaches part. It's a headline and a headache at the same time. So before you know the news, Dustin, were you excited about the potential of the ballot initiative, which you may not have to get a chance to vote on now? Were you excited about the potential of a November ballot initiative vote?
I was, but you know what? The minute I started seeing that the cultivators in our state were pushing for it, it made me scared. It made me really, really scared. Like,
why would that be? Like, why does that make you nervous?
There was this thing where the cultivators were really pushing a home grow situation. They wanted home grow things to be, like and I don't like it when any of the big guys who technically have a monopoly in the state are telling me that some other amendment is going to be really good and give me more access to medicine. It's almost like there's too much money in their knowledge in that. And I don't know. It instantly says I need to double check my facts. I need to really look hard into everything and be like, well, who's really paying for this?
That is interesting. I'll tell you, because there is, and I've seen it in Ohio, there is typically states that have adult use, tend to have home grow. And in Ohio here, in fact, there is a group of people that put together a list of cultivators who don't and do support home grow, because they are against the cultivators who don't, because they feel like it's trying to keep them down and create their even bigger monopoly that they are the only ones to provide it. But you, on the other hand, at least in this particular bill or this particular ballot initiative, feel a little bit of apprehension from a cultivator who actually is supporting of it because of ulterior motives. I mean, I think it's interesting because I think most people, especially like that cultivators approve of home grow because they feel it's not about their product, it's about the product, right? But I feel like there's a little apprehension in there because there could be, fine print. There could be italicized fine print that we're not aware of. Is that kind of your concern?
Yeah, exactly. Totally. And we've seen it time and time again that the fine print it ends up being the print. So we especially in Ohio's program, we've learned that we really need to pay attention to all the details.
All right, well, let's bring up some of the latest and greatest details about Ohio's program here. So it's been going back and forth, and they've been collecting signatures this whole time. It was approved. We hit the amount of, well, actually, let me take that back. The the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, which is the group here in Ohio that runs it. I had to close my eyes and think about their name. The Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol is the name of the group that is funding this initiative in Ohio to get adult use and home grow on the ballot in November. And so typically in ballot initiative states, of which there are only 26, I actually just learned that a couple years ago. Like there's only 26 states. Not every state has the ability to do this, which was, I guess, a bit mind-blowing to me and kind of concerning in some weird way.
I never realized that either.
Yeah, only 26 states have the ability to have ballot initiatives. Only half the country can do what we're doing.
Is there a rhyme and reason to that? Is that a political standpoint? Is it like geographic? Is it...
Well, A, you're asking questions. I only have so many facts inside my head, Dustin. I only have so many things to make me sound smart to impress the people. So I don't appreciate you peeling back the layers to show the onion behind my rose petals. I'm not sure, clearly, but I would guess that it's just when they set up the original state constitution, state by state, that initial time frame, it was never put in there. And then somewhere along the way, I bet you most states or other states began to challenge and add it in. And quite simply, I would say they just haven't. Right? I would guess that they just haven't done it. But I'm sure people would advocate for it. We're in 2022. We have a lot of politically motivated, knowledgeable people thanks to the internet. So I'm going to guess it's probably a thing. I'm totally making all this up as I'm going, though, so I'm not real sure, but I have a microphone, so I'm correct in what I'm saying, if that makes any sense, right? We'll have to hit the Googles. We'll update that later on. Do your Googles. Do your Googles on ballot initiatives. Let's not go down a track we know nothing about, Dustin. Let's take a track. Let's get this train back on about things we do know something about. So a Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol Act put out this thing. They collected the correct amount of signatures in Ohio to get it on the ballot, submitted it. I don't know how many exactly, like 30% or so of their signatures invalidated based off whatever reasons they have, got the correct amount of signatures again, and were set to get it on the ballot until just 24 or 48 hours ago. We have a brand new headline here. So what has happened, and you can see the headline here, will Ohio voters decide to legalize recreational marijuana this year or next year? Well, we no longer get to decide. It's no longer up to us. And here's what happened. So if we go back and forth, basically, and there's the, we'll go down here to the section of the article that talks about it. If you're listening to us on audio, make sure you check out the YouTube show. That's where we find all of our good stuff. Let me scroll down to this part of the article. So what happens is group submitted these signatures early on in the end of last year. And they believe there is this 4-month window. So what happens in ballot initiative states, when you submit the ballot initiative, the state basically has the opportunity to enact a legislative bill kind of similar to that. Right? They have a 4-month window per Ohio's, once again, constitution. I don't know the political minutia of it, but I understand the basics. So they have this 4-month window to submit a legislative bill that's similar concept to what the ballot initiative is. The Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, that's a hard thing to say. We need a snazzier name there, people, believes that they submitted that and the process should have started January. All right, because they submitted at the end of the year. Well, because of the re-signature thing that I just talked about, the state Republican, mostly Republican-heavy Senate, and we just had our primary elections in May. We were pretty much all Republican. We got that hillbilly elegy author, J.D. Vance, up in this place. I don't know. Not great up in here in Ohio right now with the conservative leadership, if that's your jam, right? No thing. So anyway, they said that it basically restarts on the signature update, so which would make it the fact that they wouldn't have time to do the bill before November. So now they're both suing each other. So now we have a judge who's going to listen to each side about whether they collected the signatures in the proper time and when did this 4-month window start. So right now we're heading into, and if you had to guess, right, going into a judge having a lot of political prowess, which way would you lean, right? We're just totally speculating here. He's going to have or she's going to have this case information. What's your gut say? Now that you know that these groups are arguing back and forth, right? The state of Ohio is saying, they're pushing back. Obviously, the pro-cannabis legalization movement is the underdog in this scenario. but they're in courts now, right? They're going to go to the court. This has to be decided within the next 2 weeks or something like that, I believe. So given all that, do you think we'll end up having that? And obviously there's a little more to the story, but that's the gist of this article that's happening in Ohio. So go back and forth and do that. So now, knowing that, Dustin, how confident are you that you're going to check that box, or does it even care to you? Do you just throw your hands up in the air and say, just whatever?
I definitely don't think that anybody should say, no, I just throw up my hands and say, I don't care. I mean,
fair enough.
Sorry, guys. I will say, though, that I don't believe that it's going to be on the ballot this year. And I really say that out of I was really going to be surprised if it was to begin with. Do you remember how many initiatives it took to get the medical on the, from your past in Ohio?
It's like three or so. Yeah, there was like 3 or 4. They had Buddy, right? They had Buddy, the mascot. We have to bring up a picture of Buddy. Responsible Ohio Marketing 101. Like, don't put a superhero themed nugget big butt all the way. You talk about the ballot initiative. Let me find a picture of Buddy for our audience, because they don't know who he is, and it's crazy.
To me, the judge instantly knows that, extending this in any way is going to prevent it from being on the ballot in November. And I think at its most basic level, all of these arguments were made just for that. Whether or not the actual, our conservative leadership actually wants this law to pass is irrelevant. Whether, to me, it's just it's kind of the charade or the dance you see get played prior to the actual painting being unrailed. And so to me, it never really was supposed to be this way. I really don't think any ballot initiative like that is going to come up in the same way it's defined to us right now. And I certainly think that giving Ohio the chance to kind of rewrite it in their way definitely means most of the things you thought were great about it were going to be changed. So, it's coming.
That's a good thing to think about. Plus, as much as we are excited about this, don't forget they have the ability basically to alter, right? If they can put legislative a bill together that is similar enough, they can change some of the flow of the financing, some of the flow of the ability to control, licensing and who can grow. There's nothing in there, to my knowledge, about micro licensing, which is the most exciting wave in adult use states. And I feel like if you're going to legalize it, you should go for it. I mean, I think we know at this point, so far in our time, Ohio is very clearly anti-cannabis. They really have this program because if they didn't do something, it was eventually going to pass. And if they didn't create the wording, it was going to be against what they wanted, right? And which is all about money and power. So pretty much where they're at. So I do think this is not going to be on the ballot this fall. If I had to guess right now, I say it doesn't make the ballot. I think there's too much influence and sway. And there's no, if I was a judge, there's no real rush, because what will happen, I think we know this, and my gut says this is going to happen again. This coalition and other people will keep pushing it, and Ohio will say, fine, we'll go ahead and put some adult use wording together. We'll create a bill. We'll sign it. So I think Ohio, within the next year, before the 2023 ballot, goes ahead and creates a legal adult use initiative, which will be interesting. But I'm feeling that because of this pressure and this push, they're not going to go away. So they have to give in at some point. And I think it'll be soon, but I don't think this year. I know people are excited here in the state, but I don't think that's going to happen at all. Oh, here is, by the way, Buddy, right? So we have a variety of things. You want to legalize cannabis, right? You're like, hey, everyone, this is a serious industry. And we have respectable business people in our industry, and we are legitimate. We are no longer hiding in the shadows. The stoner stereotype is no longer more, but let's legalize it with a superhero with amazing quads. Look at those guys. That guy does not miss leg day. And a giant nugget as a head. Yes, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, watching on YouTube right now, if you're listening on audio on Spotify or iTunes, just Google Buddy Cannabis Mascot. There's about 100 pictures. There's videos of him interacting, and not just the fact that they made a superhero In a time, by the way, think about 5-6 years ago, or this was like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, more.
That was really the end of the Joe Camel era, the Marlboro Man. It was against the push of children's themed
Adult
ideas
products.
for adult products, right?
Yeah.
And so we roll out, or not we, but Responsible Ohio rolls out this giant nugget on his head, like a bud. But then they took this not to like college campuses. Like that's where they went. It's like, hey, college kids, legalize, go vote. Like it seemed like their thing was not to get the adult responsible voter in. It was to push it through college kids, even though it's a 21 and over industry, and most college kids are not 21 and over on average. It was just a terrible ploy, and you understand why it didn't make it. Like you clearly can see why we've had some failures thus far. So I'm not hopeful for Ohio. It doesn't bode well here.
Well, and I think about the amount of money that was given to that cause to drive around, to paint that car, to make the mascot, to pay for the guy, and I'm like, I bet you, if that same money was put to lawyers to help people get expungement over cannabis related charges or something, or have a lawyer for anything, I just think that like it probably would have changed more families' lives than what it ever did. And I remember that initiative. That was right.
He's got a lab coat on here. Got the lab coat on. Someone had put an image like, hey, here's what you're doing, people. Like you're basically giving it that exact same opposite thing. I like how they tried to dressy him up there. A little bit of exposed crotch region there. A little uncomfortable in a lot of areas, I think, totally. For me. So Ohio's not feeling it. We have another state, right? There's a bunch of states that have been trying to get adult use on the ballot. We've had some recent successes actually with a few states getting some good financing going, but there are still 3 states, Dustin. Do you know the 3 states with no legalization laws on the books at all? No THC laws, no CBD law, no nothing, like no hemp laws. They have 0 cannabis-centric laws on the books so far. There are 3 states that have nothing. Pop quiz. No, Georgia has low THC CBD laws on the books.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh,
I like this little test quiz. I feel like I could find, if I had a little Jeopardy sound effect, I'd be playing it right now. All right. Come on, Dustin. 3 states.
I know. I'm visualizing my map. I'm like, I don't feel like it's on the West Coast at all.
I'll give you a hint. 1 is a little Western and 2 are very central. There's 1 Western state that is a holdout. It is surrounded by adult
Illinois,
use.
I know. Indiana, yes.
It's an I state.
Really? Idaho?
Yes. Idaho is one of 3 states surrounded by Colorado, by Nevada, by obviously Washington, Oregon, now Montana, which also has legal
Montana,
adult use.
exactly.
Idaho is one of 3 states with 0 things on there. Mike, I think it's Crapo. We'll call him Mike Crapo. It's C-R-A-P-O. Mike Crapo is a senator, Republican senator from Idaho. He is the one who leads the Republican Financial Committee in the Senate. And also one of the reasons that the Secure and Fair Enforcement Act, right, this bill that's been trying to pass for about 4 years now to basically allow states to look past the federal classification of cannabis, erase kind of IRC 280E, erase kind of this cash thing, take away the fear of using federally funded money to help banking for cannabis jobs, right? That's that whole reason that you can't operate within the federal banking system, use credit cards at your dispensaries, IRC 280E, which prevents deductions from companies that operate in Schedule 1 or Schedule 2. So that whole thing, we're trying to pass this bill the government has for years called the Secure and Fair Enforcement Act. And the main person that keeps shutting it down, Mike probably pronounced his last name incorrectly, Crapo, Republican senator from Idaho. So it makes sense that Idaho, it's Crapo, but it makes sense that Idaho is one of those last holdouts because one of their main leaders is really the reason, really the main in his cohorts that we don't have financial reform in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, what's the other 2? You said there was 3.
There's 2 more central ones. So we also have Nebraska is one of the 2. So Nebraska has none there. And then there was another state. So the 3rd state, which we're saving, glad you didn't get it. You allowed me to build up the headline. The 3rd state was about to go and have medicinal on there. They were actually the other day, like 2 weeks ago was the headline that this state is about to get medical cannabis. And I literally Googled today because I was trying to find a couple more articles. Boom. Oh, it would have been so more effective if it was scrolled down on there a little bit. Kansas was about to get, so it's Nebraska, Kansas, and Idaho. Nebraska, Kansas, and Idaho. The only three states that have zero of any sort of cannabis related. Even Texas, Georgia, all those southern states are taking advantage of the hemp and the CBD crop, right? Especially Kentucky and the Carolinas. They don't have legal, well, they have some, Virginia now and Maryland have legalized cannabis. But yeah, that southern block still at least has either medicinal, or most of them have at least THC or CBD laws, 0.3% or less. Idaho, Nebraska, and now Kansas were the only three states that were the holdouts from legalized cannabis. But as you can see here, due to, once again, just legal people, right, talking back and forth, they're going to go ahead and take it off the books. And, basically here, I think it says, right, we'll have it someday, but it's just not going to, they can't get it done in time for the May 23rd thing. They're like, we just don't have enough time to talk about this, so we're going to bail on that. It's interesting even when states that have ballot initiatives, for example, you had South Dakota a couple years ago in 2019 approved both medicinal and adult use on the same ballot. They were the first state that ever did that they approved both of them through two different initiatives. But within 60 days or so, their legislative bodies, their Senate in the state of South Dakota said, okay, you can have your medicinal, but we're going to take away and not allow adult use, even though they voted for it. So now in South Dakota, you have lawsuits going back and forth. You have Mississippi, which once again, 2019, they voted medicinal. Legislative branch came in and said, no, you can't have it. They did launch their program. I think Mississippi I just saw their stats. They did like 30 million in their first month. Or something like that. So that was pretty exciting. So yeah, we have a couple of states that are struggling to get legalized. Those last three, I don't think, and people keep getting excited about adult use and such, I don't think that's anywhere near in our future. In fact, as I've said this many times, it's really going to be about deschedulization, right? Like deschedulization is the way to go, because that's what takes away. As soon as you take it off Schedule 1 or 2, now IRC 280E doesn't matter, right? Do you know the history behind IRC 280E?
No, in fact,
right.
No, I don't.
Do you even know it? Are you familiar with IRC 280 in general?
Yes, but I think for everybody listening, we'll kind of just brief over that.
So essentially, yeah. So IRC 280E is a rule, like a law within the IRS branch. And so essentially what the rule says, or what the law says, is that no company that operates within something that is on the Controlled Substance Act of 1970, Schedule 1 or 2, of which cannabis clearly is Schedule 1. Nothing that is on Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 of the Controlled Substance Act is allowed to have a tax deduction, tax break, etc. It's probably written more legalese, but that's its quick version. So you work for Jack Daniels, you make a bunch of liquor that gets people all sourced to liquored up, and they can drive and smash into cars. And I like Jack Daniels, no pun there, but you can work for Jack Daniels. You do all those things. You sell this vice-like product. You work for Philip Morris. You sell cigarettes. They are causing cancer. People die. Like, you work for these companies. And at the end of the year, as every business does, your whole goal is always to lower your taxable income, right? You're always going to scratch a check to the government. You're a store owner. You know what it's like. So your goal is to find these tax deductions and tax breaks to lower your taxable income. And so it's why a company like Amazon, which makes $1 bazillion, also somehow has $1 bazillion in tax credit and is able to basically not pay a bill to the government, because they have a slew of lawyers and accountants and people smarter or more paid, nastier than you and I, to make the system work for them. But IRC 280 prevents cannabis companies. And by the way, there are the other things in Schedule 1, right? We have things like ecstasy, heroin, cocaine. There are no legal cocaine states. There are no legal heroin states, right? There are no legal MDMA states. The only industry, really, that IRC 280E affects is the cannabis industry. And then maybe soon the psilocybin.
And it's not just, you got to understand that that term is used so loosely across the financial industry. So, my little smoke shop, which was a tobacco related store, they pushed that against us originally, and we had to push back and be like, no, the state, this is how we're classified. This is everything. This is why what you're saying is wrong. And I remember the fight a bit for that. And it continued on with even credit card processing and everything. And we're just a simple smoke shop that was selling tobacco related products, essentially.
Well, it's once again, the credit cards, FICO insured. And so that's why you can't typically have credit cards at the banks. That's why a lot of cultivators and people work within credit unions, because those are typically privately insured money versus federally insured money. Now, there are, there's a bunch of loopholes out there. Like, there's a ton of loopholes available that you can set up silo companies. There's things that people do, right? There's things that people do to get around this. But here's another fact. Interestingly enough, a couple years ago, the IRS had a subcommittee, like this Treasury income audit thing, long a set of letters to make an acronym. They did this survey for a 5-year survey from 2016 to 2021 about the amount of potential abuse against IRC 280E, right? And so what they found in that time, they only did 3 states, California, Washington, and Oregon. Their estimation of how much money the IRS was missing out on due to either taking advantage of IRC 280E, due to either not paying taxes, was about $48 million. And then they extrapolated that over 5 years in just those 3 states. And the IRS predicted that they lost out, like they missed out on about $250 million. And so if you extrapolate that to the 36 medicinal states and 4 territories, the 18 adult use states and 2 territories, now you're probably talking what? A bill. So if the IRS is missing out on at least $250 million, you know that they're coming for you, right? You know that they're going to be auditing more because people aren't paying their taxes. They're really having too many fake loopholes, right? And so it's a hard thing to do and trying to figure out. And then it puts us in the cash only aspect, which is like, okay, well, now just give me a bunch of cash and a bunch of cannabis, which is super really popular in the black market, people.
Dumb. I mean, gosh, it's been 10 years I've been screaming it. Blockchain. Like the whole thing can be put on the blockchain. These transactions are so simply transparent for everyone that it's a joke. Why? At this point, I'm not thinking that it's because they lost $1 billion in missed revenue by not going after us. I'm like, you probably lost $1 billion off one jackass that you don't even look at, So it's like, so you're going to go after me and the 45,000 other small businesses because we associate with the word cannabis. And it's like, no, at the end of the day, fuck off. If you really want transparency, if you really want true accountability, and you want to make this to where it doesn't cost anything and it's not hard for me to actually take account all my loss within a plant industry where I'm dropping plant matter and a whole manner of things. It's like, fuck you. These guys missed the whole boat that like for 1/100th of the cost that it cost us to pay them to fucking spit this nonsense, we could literally have a blockchain built to manage it and it would just fucking put the money in their coffers automatically. It's crazy to me. And that's one of my headaches in this industry.
So let me tell you the quick story about the history, just to because I think it's hilarious. So in 1979, right? In 1979, and I'm very much giving the truncated my version of the story, but it's a good story. So around 1979, 1980, a cocaine dealer was arrested. He was arrested, and this dude, which I like to picture him, by the way, total Miami Vice, right? Like just the no socks, the loafers, like the big shoulder pads, just totally a Tubbs and Crockett kind of vibe there, driving his cigarette boat back to Cuba, doing these things. Anyway, he was arrested, obviously charged with cocaine trafficking. And much like, sometimes law enforcement does, they like to it's stack charges, right? It's like a stack up deal, like bundle and save when you get arrested. Sometimes they really throw a bunch of charges on you. And so one of the things they tried to get him with was tax fraud, similar to Al Capone and these other ways that they took down other people, So they found him and tried to get him with a bunch of tax fraud because he was claiming tax deductions on the boat, on the gasoline, on the containers. Like he was really basically taking tax deductions for his illegal cocaine business. And so while he was arrested and prosecuted for his cocaine trafficking, his lawyer basically, once again, the short version, said, show me where I can't. Like, show me, right? Show me on there. Like, show me. And they were like, there really wasn't anything into there. So that was in 1981 that his case was finalized. 1982, is when IRC 280 came into effect. So it was put in place to stop cocaine dealers and stop the thought. Put yourself in 1982, Nancy Reagan, just say no. Like the thought of legal marijuana, legal weed, like was impossible. Like we are still in Woodstock hippie era, free love. Like the thought of legal cannabis in 1980, even though it happened in 1996, so it wasn't that far apart. But I don't think anyone on a federal level would have ever imagined that it would happen. So when people get mad at IRC 280, it is frustrating. It wasn't put in place to stop cannabis. It was put in place to stop other things. But now, and here's the problem with letting a law like this stay in place for this long. Now, it only affects legal businesses. Right? It only affects really the cannabis industry and potentially the psilocybin industry if they get going. That's it. Because
and
none of the other things become legal.
And it only affects the smaller cannabis
because the big
companies.
boys have the ability to have multiple shell companies. And in states like California, you're able to have different licensing. And if you can have manufacturing that does hemp, right now, see, here's the difference. And here's where the Farm Bill of 2018, really dropping some legal legislative now. We should have changed our thing to like legal and legislative or something, headlines and headaches. If you look back into 2018 Farm Bill, which was the impetus behind legalized hemp and CBD sales, right? Backed off the 2014 Farm Bill, which allowed for the research. That's where that magic 0.3% number came from with THC. So that is what allowed for legal hemp. And so now all these companies are cultivating hemp, manufacturing hemp, taking the hemp matter, and they're basically, taking money. They're sort of like fraud, but sort of not. Once again, it's these weird legal loopholes, but this is what IRC 280 does for people like you who are just completely ancillary, and for the people who are in the plant matter every day. You're having to go through all of these hurdles that Philip Morris, Jack Daniels, Sam Adams, like all these other companies, which are all good companies, maybe not your cigarette people, sorry, all good companies can take advantage of, right? They can all take advantage of this thing. You can't, and the ancillary companies can't. And so it seems silly at this point. And so what they've done makes sense-wise. We keep having the SAFE Act, the Secure and Fair Enforcement Act, come up, but back to Mike Crepo, who doesn't seem to want to legalize it. So it's just this round and round thing that has become extremely frustrating for us. And it seemingly has no end. There really is no end in sight right now because it just keeps getting passed. They keep denying the ability to pass the SAFE Act.
Yeah. And gosh, then what, the psychedelics, that the new industry that's coming across the board is going to have the same fight for another 20 years. That's how they're going to allow the big boys to come into that industry and buy up the real estate, buy up the name, buy up the trademarks, buy up all the manufacturers and the research hubs and everything else. And then they'll say, ooh, now you guys can play again. So no, I mean, I'm kind of tired of seeing it, but we know the trope, we know the routine. Now, how do I fit into it is really what I'm trying to think.
Well, I think it comes to, you got to get, we talked about this. Actually, you said something a little earlier. Like, you got to get motivated. Like, you can't not do nothing. I don't think that's proper English, but you can't do anything. Like, I think that's the big issue, as you said earlier. Like, it's the option of don't do anything shouldn't be one. Like, because if you're not doing anything, then we're not helping. We have things like we just had our past May, primaries for a lot of states. And so that's where you can get change from. Though were you under the impression during the Trump to Biden switch that maybe Biden might kind of put some legalization cannabis effort forward? Are you disappointed that there hasn't been more legal action for cannabis from the Biden administration? Because if states tend to go more liberal, right, that's when you tend to get potential legalization or, just for money. So I thought Biden might change things, but until you get a federal movement, like someone POTUS saying something, it probably won't have a huge change.
Yeah, no, actually, there was a lot of talk that he was going to do some things. But again, show me the data and I will show you the facts. Like, I don't care about the emotions or anything else. And in the past, the data has shown that they don't care. What I'm really going to be surprised at is, there's provisions in our Constitution that say when X majority of states all agree on something, it's irrelevant what the federal government says. It can become something else even without their thing. And I'm surprised that at this point we literally have well over a majority of states. And well over a majority of states that have some type of provision in place. And so in certain cases, we're talking 70% or more of the states. So, it's going to come to a point where, yes, someone's going to come forward and say, no. You forgot about this one thing from 200 years ago. And by the way, we all agree on it. And by the way, you don't even have a choice anymore. So, go hang out with your dog at the White House and we'll see you next month. I think there is things like that, again, these systems are not in place to protect. They're in place to allow the ownership and investment and expansion and stuff like that in early on to, again, take the real estate over first. You can't, it's literally centuries old. It's time trope. It's in our government. It's hundreds of years since the robber barons. It's what do you think is still happening today? It's all the same.
All right, let's talk about one more thing here before we got a few minutes here on the show before we end up. So obviously the legal stuff is frustrating. I read an opinion article the other day, Dustin, is something that I know you are passionate about. And so it kind of came on the heels. I was at the Cleveland School of Cannabis the other day, and one of the instructors had gotten a package from a company in California. We were looking to get, just packaging so we could show students, hey, here's a variety of different packaging containers that all these products come in, flour and oils and edibles. So they're promoting their brand too. So they send you there's no product in it. It's just a bunch of empty boxes. And so we opened it up, and I would say all but two, and there's probably like 15 or 20 little packages in there. All but two were made of cardboard or paper, right? Cardboard or paper, something. They were all made, and that was kind of their sales pitches. They're working towards more recyclable containers. Ironically enough, I just had the sports energy drink the other day or something like that called B.C or something. And their whole shtick is kind of recyclable cardboard containers. The single serve plastic unit has been a big issue overall, right? Recycling, sustainability, it's something that a lot of industries grapple with, and a headache that the cannabis industry is currently causing, but has the potential to maybe turn around, is that, right? Is that environmental packaging? Is that sustainability? So on MJ Biz Daily a couple days ago, Dana Stoic put this article out basically encouraging the cannabis industry to be the one to set big pharma back on track, right? And so I know you're kind of passionate about this. So let's talk a little bit, we talk legal, we'll talk sustainability to end the show today. So, single serve plastic. And now part of the reason, not just the plastic itself, but part of the problem is cannabis, federally illegal, so it's considered a toxic substance. So once it's ingrained into the plastic, it can't be recycled. Right? It's not allowed to legally be recycled. So that's part of the issue because it's federally illegal substance. So it's a toxic substance. So now it can't be. But glass can. So glass, because it doesn't have the ability to sink in and have the product melt. I'm sure there's a smarter term. We need Dr. Hamad on here. Whatever that term is that it, kind of gets into the plastic. Glass doesn't. But glass is very expensive. So we don't have a great thing. Most cannabis products, you're a patient. I bet you have a closet full. People have closet fulls like a comedy movie where they open it up.
I just got rid of mine.
And they all fall
Last
down.
month, I just got rid of it. And in the 2 years that I have been a patient, and I am not exaggerating, an entire huge industrial trash bag.
It is pretty amazing.
Hundreds and hundreds of bottles and containers and unbelievable. Keep going on with this. I'm sorry I cut you off in the article.
No. It was interesting here. I was just saying there's a fact here about how 91% of pharmaceutical containers end up in the trash can. End up as environmental waste. They're not being recycled. So, with something that puts out that many units. And so what his big push was that, look, cannabis is young. Cannabis is hot. It's got the ability to shift and move into more paper packaging versus the plastic type of packaging. And so I thought it was interesting that this company had it. And I know it's something that, has been big for you, just trying to find a way to switch it up. So he says here, right, 1,000 years for those little tiny, orange tinged plastic bottles to disintegrate into ground. ground, and as you said, you just have trash bags
Yeah.
full, and that's just going to the
You
dump. They're not
remember,
going to be
you
recycled.
know what started this? You know what started all this, right? Do you remember I just looked up when it was founded, but you know Keep America Beautiful. You've seen their little logos on every little recycling cup at every fast food place and every do you know what that is? You know how that started and why it started and what the even any of the history of this single serving plastic notion that like in corporate America type of
All right,
thing?
let's do a switcheroo. I taught you about some legal stuff. You talked to me about, I know nothing about what you're talking about.
And I am just going to give an overview to the overview
Sure.
that I had listened to weeks ago from a podcast called Stuff
We
You
are
Should
nothing
Know.
but regurgitators of information,
No,
Dustin.
that's it. It's a regurgitate on the regurg. So Keep America Beautiful was actually started because single serving packaging had just started 2-3 years prior. There was now this push, and it wasn't just a push. It was literally America was so bad at single serving plastic that they physically had to have commercials to show them how to throw away the item and not recycle it. Like literally, hey, America, you can just open this bread and throw the other thing away. Don't worry about washing it. Just throw it away. So much money put into teaching people how to throw away single serving. So now let's fast forward a few years or half a decade or whatever. And now there's all this. There was back then when it started, the fear of so much single serving plastic having, the recyclingness of this, what's going to happen to the planet. There were concerns back then. And so people started littering. This is the first time in the country that there was littering because people had the notion of just throwing it away and they were just throwing it on the ground. And so what ended up happening was there started being this huge come up across the board in terms of a political, it is this side against this side over this issue, right? Mm-hmm. And so corporate America realized that their profits, because their profits had quadrupled 400%, 500% across the board with single serving plastics. The minute that they were able to make sure the person threw out a portion of it or that only half was eaten and the rest was gone, their money started really piling up. And there was a huge amount of money being spent on recollecting the bottles, the glass bottles for the milk and washing them and refilling them. And it ended up being so cheap to just put it in something disposable and not have that whole manpower process that these corporations were like, we want single serving plastic. We cannot under any circumstances risk there being some law that comes into effect to do this. And so this political fight is happening across the country. Things are heating up and corporate America is scared, right? They start, the argument starts being put on, is it that we're going to come after the corporations, right? Instead, the corporations get together and they put the largest donation for any foundation like that to its time, collected by multiple organizations, to put it together and create Keep America Beautiful. And the whole of Keep America Beautiful was not to get you to throw away your plastic. It was to take the responsibility off of the corporation to get it to them to recycle and them to have to deal with the trash and put the responsibility on you, the consumer. You need to put this in the trash. You need to stay, have the thought process on this. And so it was the biggest trope in terms of what we believe and what we've seen is this amazing thing and it ended up being this corporate nonsense that really was started under the wrong pretenses, continues to this day under the wrong pretenses. They are the longest running litter foundation ever. They're the biggest advocate, and it's like, of course you are. 40 years after single serving plastics was made, we're coming after you. So no, there is something to this. Now you got this, it's kind of interesting that I'm seeing the shift to the packaging people, the cultivators and stuff like that, instead of it's on me. But at the end of the day, I had a trash bag worth of product that I had to feel the guilt over. I had to find something to do with it. All the glass ones are now being made into candles. Like all my glass jars, I'm pouring wax in there and
doing your part.
And then, you know, the other plastic ones are just, I don't know what to do. They are going in the trash.
You have
and
to
they're,
go in the trash. There's no
you
place
know,
for them to go. Like, I mean, you could hold on to them, you can try but at the end, you're not going to melt them down and make something. They're going to go there. I mean, really, you know, recycling is a weird thing. Just even a few years ago, there was a big shift because I don't know the numbers, but I'm going to talk about it because I'm behind a mic. You know, a good portion, I'd say like 80-90% of our recycling is just purchased by China and sent overseas, right? To be recycled and then sold made into cheap things. Well, what happened, take away COVID, is China basically realized that most of what they had was not usable, right? So all these things, you eat a pizza box, it's got cheese on it, you toss it, recycle. That's not recyclable. If you have like leftover peanut butter in the jar and you toss it in the recycle bin, that's going in the trash. Like, they're not washing it out for you, right? Once again, that's that kind of onus on you if you want to do that and recycle it. But if you put dirty food particled stuff in the recycle bin, there's a good chance that whoever sorts that just goes trash. There's not some guy, especially in a staffing era.
Well, and they're looking at it per container bulk weight worth, right? They're not sorting through the. So what they're saying that if less than 5% or something is non-recyclable in the whole container, it's all not worth us sorting, and it all has to go. And now I have confusion with my thing because I was always told you need to keep the cap on the bottle so that they understand the plastic numbers so that they know which way it goes to go to sorting. Now my recycling company is telling me I need to take the cap off and throw both of them in the thing separately. And I'm like, I don't even know. I guess, you know, to me, have you ever heard of plasma arc recycling or anything like that? Like plasma recycling?
No.
It's this concept that instead of heating down the plastic and remelting it and making it into something, or, you know, you are hitting it with such a high temperature with plasma that it literally vaporizes all particles, all dangerous particles, every bit of everything. And those get converted at the smallest molecule and exported into safe means. And so it's very expensive, but there are a lot of countries that actually equal zero waste. And part of that is due to the way they do plasma recycling for the remaining parts of what couldn't be recycled technically. But in terms of this, you know, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that we have seen is set to be a $50 billion a year industry by 2030. You know, so if one of these plasma plants cost $5 billion, an enormous amount of money to make because they are exponentially more expensive than a normal recycling plant, you know, like to me, it's like, why couldn't all states send them to one plasma recycler to get rid of this shit? You know, like, why are we thinking, why
you can't right now because it has illegal state exportation, illegal substance of even residue that would test. You know, last week we got excited about the seed reclassification, but the reality is those little dust particles in that container would test if you somehow tested them, even though it's not even consumable at that point, like little dust left over, would test above 0.3%, hence making it illegal, hence saying you could not transport it across state guidelines as long as it's federally illegal. Like, it's really, what is that? The omnibus or whatever, the snake eating the snake. It's not omnibus or whatever it is. It's the snake eating the snake, you know, just going, eating its own tail, just around and around and around with no end. But I did like Dana Stoic from MJ Biz Daily, just kind of vibe, kind of what you're also saying. Like, we could, out of all the things, and people look back at cannabis and all this negativity, it could be a push, right? If we are the one that changes that and really educates. But the reality is, like, let's be real. People, like, I have probably 18,000 pill bottles in this house. You know, my parents, I got those pill bottles are all over the place. You recycle them. They're just getting thrown in the trash at the end of the day. And once again, some of those, because of just the substance that was in it, if it's a toxic chemical, if you have like Adderall or Vicodin or things like that, there's a good chance that plastic just is able to be thrown away. So I don't know what it'll change. I love your idea about plasma. I don't know. I don't ever see someone stepping up just because it costs so much money. You know, it'd be nice. You need like a Musk. You need like an Elon Musk or someone like that. He smoked weed on the Rogan show once. You need to get him into it because he's the type of person who would do something like that, right? Like right? I always wanted that poster. It was a great poster someone made of his moment. He's the one that always wanted that. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that the industry can do well. But much like that, much like the legalization, Dustin, I don't know. We hold out hope. Man, that was a fast show. That went quickly for us. Hey, everyone, thank you again for joining us here on Because Cannabis. As always, Make sure you subscribe. Check out Wayward Media. We love you, Anthony Trav. I know we made fun of your sunglasses. I don't know, man. We love you. But streaming on there, we got some more Wayward gaming content coming soon. Some new shows coming as well in this year. So we're excited about that. So give us a subscribe. Follow us. Wherever you're listening to us on audio, Spotify, iTunes, little rating, little review would be appreciated. A lot of interviews coming up in the next few Fridays. So you're going to be excited to join us. Follow us on social media at MeetWM. I'm going to get that social media trainer rolling, Dustin. Follow us on social media anywhere you go at MEET, letter W, letter M, MEETWM. To find out who we got. We got some great guests. The next 4 or 5 shows are going to be all interviews, and we got some exciting ones. A lot of different people coming up. So that's going to be fun to do that. Though I do love these shows. I always love these shows, getting to catch up and just pontificate about what's ever proliferating our brain matter. Dustin, awesome to see you. Have a great week. We'll use next Friday to close it out with a great guest to recap the week. So have a great weekend as well. All of you out there, take care, everybody. Good luck.